Today on Locked On Red Wings, a 3-game winning streak turns into a 3-game losing streak as the Red Wings fall 4-3 to the Los Angeles Kings.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for WWJ News Radio 950, while Scotty is a freelance journalist for the Detroit News and the host of Locked On Tigers. And early recording for us on a Sunday here, recording about 12:30, trying to knock this out before the Lions game happens. We want to watch that team inevitably lose too.
It's Bears week, baby. We gotta wrap this up.
So if there's any news that comes out and it's not in this episode, you'll know why. We recorded fairly early because the Wings played on Saturday. So we figured, hey, why the heck not? But the Red Wings lost 4-3 to the Los Angeles Kings on Saturday night in what was probably one of the most boring games I've seen all year. Much like the Rangers game, because the Rangers ended up not having a lot of shots in that game against the Detroit Red Wings either. They just, that third period just crumbled before their eyes. But in this game, they held the Kings to 21 shots, had 21 shots themselves. It was a much better defensive performance. Like, they locked her down pretty good. Obviously, Kings scored 4 goals, but a lot of that has to do with poor goaltending, and I'm going to call it out. Poor goaltending and not being able to not stopping taking penalties. That's not the right way of saying it, but the inability to not take a penalty led to power play goals for the Kings. I mean, those two things were really what made the big difference in this game, because there weren't a lot of shots against, and that's a credit to the defense in this game.
Yeah, and it's a point that we talk about a lot on here, and we keep reiterating, is the 5-on-5 play needs to take a big step in a more positive direction as the season goes on. And I think that this game was kind of the epitome of the season so far, in the sense that the 5-on-5 play, while you weren't getting dominated or anything, there were no shots really on either side on 5-on-5, especially through the first 2 periods. It was still this offense cannot get any lick of consistent pressure, and all of their opportunities are fast breaks and rushes and special teams. And that's the only time that this offense really, on a game-to-game basis this season, has been able to consistently attack, is only in those aspects. There's very, very little 5-on-5 threats offensively. And this game, again, I thought was just the epitome of the season offensively, in the sense that they still put up 3. They were able to come back late, but you never felt like the game was in the Red Wings' control ever, because the Kings, even though, again, they didn't have a boatload of shots on net either, got out to an early lead, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And then you were already playing from behind, and it's hard to claw your way back into a game from a multiple goal deficit when you can't keep the puck in the attacking zone for more than 15 seconds at a time.
Yeah, I mean, the Kings, the first period especially, was all Kings all day.
100%.
Nedeljkovic
jerseys, by the way.
Oh, fire.
I love them, dude. I think everybody does. That's a universal thing, but
every time they do a throwback or a reverse retro for the Los Angeles Kings, I wonder to myself, why are these not the primary colors? Because the black and silver is so boring. They're not bad jerseys. They're just decent jerseys, but they're so boring in comparison to the purple and gold. And that's an iconic color for LA too. I mean, the Lakers wear them too. So it's just use those. You have the color scheme and it works. It works in literally every league that you play in. Use them. But anyways, don't want to get too far off topic here. The Kings absolutely dominated that game in the first period. The shots for were 8-2 at 5-on-5 for the Los Angeles Kings. Corsi was 23 shot attempts for, 9 shot attempts against. And then, quality of shots too was 73% in favor of the Kings. It was just an absolute domination by the Los Angeles Kings. And, we are looking at, they kept talking about last year how the Wings were outshot at I called it the Staples Center the other night. I forgot that they changed it to Crypto Arena.
Oh,
but
yeah.
they're
Is it crypto.com arena? Is
something
that what
like
it is?
that. It's stupid as hell.
Yeah.
And so last year, everyone kept talking about on the broadcast because the first period was getting out to such a slow start that the Wings were outshot 27-2 or something like that. And we were
Yeah.
all like, oh, no.
Oh, my goodness. Do you remember that?
No. Thankfully, I actually don't. And I'm glad I don't. I must have wiped that
The
from my
Pistons
memory.
must have played that night because golly, man, I remember talking about that game and holy cow. Oh, goodness gravy.
It must have been a game where I was at LCA working a Pistons one for sure.
Yeah, dude.
Thankfully, I don't remember
was
that game.
goodness gracious. Yeah, I remember talking about that game. Golly.
But it looked that way for a while, and then thankfully the Red Wings responded with a Dominic Kubalik power play goal. As he continues to just do his thing, and then in the second and the third periods, it was pretty even. Just not a lot of offense in this game. I mean, what really killed you in this game was Nedeljkovic playing poorly. And granted, the inability to not take penalties. And that's how I started off the show. And that, again, reiterating, is what killed you in this game, because the Los Angeles Kings scored two or three power play goals in this one. They scored two power play goals, one even strength goal, and two even strength goals. I mean, that's just, you can't, I mean, we talk about this every episode, is you have got to stay out of the box if you want to win hockey games. And you score two power play goals on your own, which is great because the power play in the last two games hasn't been all that good. But we talk about how this team steals games, and they steal games by not allowing power play goals and scoring power play goals of their own, because we know at 5-on-5 they're not very good. Now in this game, periods 2 and 3, they actually played pretty even at 5-on-5, which is great. Yeah. Like, there were positives in this game.
I thought really even. Yeah.
There were absolutely positives to take away from this game. Like I said, the power play was good again. The 5-on-5 play was even after the first period. They hung with them, but there just was, like you said, it was even, but that's because both teams kind of lacked the ability to generate any offense at 5-on-5. That's why.
Right. Yeah, neither team on a consistent basis was really able to, at least like consistent threats or like consistent high danger opportunities. They weren't. Like, goal scoring is honestly a different thing these days. But I don't know, man. Like, it was a game that early on, it was impossible not to 9 seconds in, right? We give up a goal 9 seconds into the game. So you kind of thought like, oh, brother, here we go again. And I think that it was a game that after the first period, I was pretty convinced we were going to get routed again.
Me too.
And then they, a loss is a loss. I didn't get any points out of it, like whatever. I totally understand that. But they at least in the second and third, and especially the third, salvaged the game to make it somewhat close and didn't just roll over. And we talked about that so much after or at the end of last week, and how a lot of their losses lately, it seems like they get down a couple of goals and it's just like, okay, well, it's over. We're going to throw in the towel and lose by 5, 6, 7 goals. And it was nice, even though with a loss, yes, absolutely, it was still nice to at least see that they didn't just roll over and get absolutely destroyed, and they were able to salvage their way back into the game and make it relatively close.
No, I mean, and that's the thing that you battle with internally, and I battle with internally, is because we claim to have risen our expectations for this team going into the season because of all the free agent acquisitions and the impact that they've had and continue to have in this game as well. And so you want to say that losing a game absolutely cannot serve as a good bounce back. But I mean, you look at the numbers, and they fought hard against the Los Angeles Kings. They battled back. There are obviously still clear red flags they got to take care of, like Nedeljkovic, which we'll talk a little bit more of. I want to talk about Nedeljkovic in segment 2. But like, they were able to shore up some of the big weaknesses. Obviously, we talked already about defensively. They played better. They were able to stop the Los Angeles Kings from really generating any consistent offensive zone pressure. It was mostly
they broke up a lot
of zone entries. They would dump and chase the puck into our zone. A scrum would ensue. And I made a tweet about it. It was like, it's break in, turnover, break out, break in, turnover. That's pretty much what it was. The occasional puck squeaking out to the slot for a shot against. And so that was great to see. So 5-on-5 play improved, but then your penalties were still an issue. Your goaltending was an issue in this game, which we see a lot of, like I said, with Nedeljkovic. So they fought back and not bought back. I don't know what that means. They fought back and got it into this game. But like you've said, you can't keep getting yourself into a hole and expect to climb back out. And it's just, it was a good effort. They didn't give up, but there's still, like, you got to win hockey games. You got to get points in hockey games if you want to stay in the race for the Atlantic Division. And we talked about it. We said it on the game against the New York Rangers. We both believe this team probably isn't a playoff team this year. We think down the stretch, they're going to battle for a wild card spot, but this Atlantic Division is just too deep for them to actually win it. 85, 87 points. It's a massive improvement on last season. And we expect, but that's not enough in the league anymore to make the playoffs. I mean, we talked about it. The Boston Bruins made the playoffs last year in a wild card position with 100 points.
Right.
So expectations are risen, but also we got to keep in mind that the reality of what this team still is trying to accomplish. And they're just not quite there yet. We're seeing progress, but they're not quite there yet. We got to get to a break though. And when we come back, we'll talk about Alex Nedeljkovic. We'll talk about the pros in this game, besides just the defense. We got to talk about Larkin, Kubalik, Jonathan Berggren in line 4. Great again. Berggren getting looks on the top line as well. We'll talk all about that segment 2. If you've thought about securing your home with home security, but have been putting it off, you'll want to listen up. Right now, Locked On Red Wings listeners can order the #1 rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer yet, and you don't want to miss it. Here is why you're going to love it. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real, so you can get priority police response. Simply Safe is whole home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door. HD security cameras for inside and out. Smarter ways to detect motion that alert you only when a threat is real. And even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. 24/7 professional monitoring service costs less than $1 a day. Less than half the price of ADT's traditional, professionally installed system. With the top-rated Simply Safe app, stay in complete control of your system anytime, anywhere, arm or disarm, unlock for a guest, access your cameras, or adjust system settings. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that Locked On Red Wings recommends. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/LockedOnRedWings today. This is the biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplysafe.com, Locked On NHL. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. We're breaking down the loss to the Los Angeles Kings, and the game was a step forward in the right direction, but not quite there all the way. And I just want to pause and talk a minute about Nedeljkovic, because after a good bounce back game last weekend against the New York Rangers and the overtime win against them, he came out and did not look good. And obviously he allowed that goal in the first 9 seconds, and it was a 2-on-1. So, it's not, that goal is on the team as a whole, but we talk about this, and Nedeljkovic has a tendency to allow goals in like the first 5 minutes of the game or the first few shots of the game. The team does too, but Nedeljkovic usually when he's in net. And I don't want to put that goal on him, but the goal on the power play, both goals on the power play for the Kings were weak ones. The first goal that Bertuzzi had, he was caught out of position and somehow made the save. The puck came across to Bertuzzi on the far side, and because Nedeljkovic was already out of position on the first shot, he was actually in position for this shot, squared up with Bertuzzi, and somehow Bertuzzi beat him short side. And I watched multiple replays, and I just can't wrap my head around how this shot beat Nedeljkovic, because he was squared up with the shot. And then the other power play goal, and at first we were all like, well, Phil Peronik, what are you doing? And you should still never cross-check a guy into your own goaltender. But that was a weak shot into the 5-hole that squeaked through. And so there are at least 2 goals in this game and both were on the power play where Nedeljkovic should have made the save. And his goal saved above expected in this one was like -2.5. So the numbers back up what we're seeing is that he's not playing to par. I mean, 4 goals against on 21 shots isn't really acceptable. And, we are very careful. We are always very careful. And I've said this before about blaming goaltending when it comes to team losses, because hockey is a team game. And so when a goalie plays poorly or there's a lot of goals against, you have to look at the wider scope of things. But consistently in almost every game that Nedeljkovic has played in, his goal saved above expected is safely in the negative, except with the exception of the great game he put up against the New York Rangers last weekend. So, you got to call a spade here. And he just has continued not to really play well or play consistent early in the game here or early in the season here, and not really giving his team a chance to compete.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we saw a lot last season that this team, and again, much different defense, as we've reiterated a lot, but same goaltender. So we've seen a lot in the second half of last season, the ability for Red Wings games to get out of hand really quickly and go from close games to blowouts or whatnot. And we've already seen it several times this season with both goalies now, but still more so Ned than Husso. It's just it's a trend that no one wants. Like nobody, the goalies don't want it. The coaching staff doesn't want it. The defense doesn't want it. The fans don't want it. Nobody wants your losses to be just like embarrassing losses. And this one was only a 1-goal loss, obviously. But again, like the difference that a game, giving up a goal 10 seconds into a game, less than 10 seconds into a game, like the difference in how the rest of that period is most likely going to play cannot be stressed enough. Like that's really brutal. And that's, again, something that in Ned's really entire Red Wings career, we have seen him not like consistently to the sense where it's like every game, but we have seen him enough to notice give up really quick goals at the start of games over and over and over again. And it's definitely frustrating, and it's definitely something that again, like you said, it's not like the goal was entirely 100% on him and it was some terrible goal or whatever. And it's certainly on the defense too, but that there's just these traits and like
Trends.
these things that this team does on a semi-consistent basis that like you have to nip and like you have to get rid of.
Yeah, like we're far enough into the season, 15 games, to like look at what is happening and notice trends. And this is a trend.
Right.
And by no means, like I root for Nedeljkovic. I have a soft spot in my heart for Nedeljkovic because of what he went through last season and some of the performances he put up. So I want him to get back on a consistent basis because the team needs 2 good goaltenders. It just does. So I'm rooting for him on every step of the way, but that was just another, unfortunately, poor performance by him. And, we talked about all the other negatives, and that's just one of the key ones. Continually taking penalties is bad. It is a problem. Winning faceoffs continues to be a problem, as they won like 43% of their faceoffs in this game. I have it up here. 42.3 faceoff win percentage. Larkin was the only one with an even 50-50 face-off percentage in this game. It's just, come on, guys. Like, this is the team. It's not quite
consistent too.
Yeah. But this is what we talk about. This is a team that's looking to take steps forward this year, and they've taken some steps forward, and they haven't in other areas. And we just have to make sure that we are continue to be realistic with our expectations. Let's talk about the good things that happened before I start repeating myself even more. Kubalik and Larkin, their scoring race. Raymond got a point in this game as well, as those 3 guys continue to be the bulk of the offense on this team, as David Perron's gone kind of cold. Kubalik with a power play, just like the Kubalik goal. Like, should we just call that the Kubalik goal? A power play one-timer?
It was a beauty.
It was a great goal. I mean, Peterson, I think, probably wants that one back a little bit, as I think it snuck through him.
Yeah, for sure.
But, I mean, Kubalik's ability he's like oh, God, you will know this. I can't remember the name of the guy from it's been a while since I've seen the Mighty Ducks. But the guy from the Mighty Ducks who scores on 1 out of 5 slap shot.
Oh, yeah.
Someone in the comments is going to tell me the name and make fun of me.
I don't remember his name either.
That's literally Kubalik. 1 out of 5 one-timers finds the back of the net, because he missed one later in the game that would have brought them within 1, I think, at the time, or maybe even tied it, because it might have been after Hronik's goal. But he looked great again, just creating offensive opportunities. A Larkin scoring on a nice tic-tac-toe passing play from Raymond and Sundqvist looked good. That was Raymond's first assist since the second game of the season, by the way.
Dang.
It's been a while. But those two players, with Raymond included as well, have been the offense for this team throughout this stretch of like lower goal totals.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to see that players who are supposed to score goals score goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it cannot be reiterated enough Kubalik's value to this team and just like the ability that he has, where if he has even a small window or even a tiny opening, he's gonna let it rip. And we talk about it all the time, so you don't have to rehab that conversation for the millionth time. But it's so reassuring, and it's kind of like a safety net offensively. We're like, okay, we might get outshot and we might not be able to have any consistent pressure in the opponent's zone. But if the puck gets on Dominic Kubalik's stick, it's going towards the net. That's at least somewhat reassuring. And that's why he keeps getting opportunities to score and taking advantage of them.
Yeah, 18 points in 15 games for Kubalik and 17 points in 15 games for Dylan Larkin. Dylan Larkin being a +6 is pretty incredible as well. For as bad as this team is at 5-on-5, because plus minus only counts 5-on-5 goals. So the fact that he's a +6 on this team that's as bad as they are at 5-on-5 speaks to how important he is to their 5-on-5 play. And, plus minus isn't like an end-all be-all stat. In fact, I think it's one of the weaker stats, but, there's something to be said about +6. Phil Pronik also being a +4 is a massive surprise as he continues to be a either on or off player every night. Last night was a bit of both. In fact, is he had that weird cross-check play that would have been a goal regardless. But then he scored the goal that brought him within one off the Dominic Kubalik assist, which put him in the lead on for points. But, I mean, those things were positives. And then line 4. That line of Veleno, Czarnik, and Berggren is fantastic. And we'll talk about that in segment 3 because I got to talk to you guys today about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. They've got it covered at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Let's talk about that line 4. Czarnik, Berggren, and Joe Veleno. And absolute beauty of a line that they're generating. There's so much, I think, motivation with those 3 players on that line that their hustle is at a next level. I mean, we talked about in the preseason, Veleno looked good, Berggren looked good, Czarnik looked good, but like we knew what their roles were. You put those 3 guys together, Czarnik doesn't want to get sent back down to the AHL. He thinks he deserves an NHL spot. Berggren made his NHL debut and wants to stick with the team. And Joe Veleno is trying to prove that he's more than a bottom 6 forward. And their hustle and heart and their immediate chemistry that they've had has been fantastic. Berggren had several great opportunities in this game set up by Czarnik and Veleno, and then enough so that he earned a spot on the top line in the third period, replacing Pius Suter. That line as a whole, especially Berggren, has been fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great point, kind of like the motivation of that line. They're all, not necessarily all like, well, I mean, they're all fighting to get playing time in the future, right? Like that's the motivation behind that entire line, is just the ability to, some of them stay on the roster. Like that I think that's a really good point. And I mean, Berggren's just been great. Like that's just been, he's looked really solid, well beyond, he hasn't appeared so far to look, I don't know, taken by the moment, or like the stage is too big for him, or like the level of play is too big for him. Like he has looked really, really solid. And I continue to be impressed by him. And the other, Joe Veleno, I think has looked fantastic.
Yes.
Offensively, especially for a majority of the season. He had a goal, at the end of last week, he had a goal that was an absolute beauty. He's had a couple of assists. Like I think Joe Veleno's looked really solid. And the emergence of him looking the way he has is, I think, why a lot of people are really, part of the reason why a lot of people are really fine with Suter moving over to the wing, and like that adds depth to the wings and whatnot. But you don't necessarily need that if Veleno's playing as well as he is. So yeah, it's awesome to see. It helps the depth, which we desperately need right now. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, they've been as a line. We looked the game against the Rangers. We didn't want we were down bad that episode, but they were phenomenal in the game against the Rangers in a
Yeah.
game where you got blown out 8-2. And in this game again, they were the best line. They're as a line whole at 5-on-5. They outshot their opponents. Their Corsi percentage was 53.3. And their goals for percentage, expected goals for, was 69% in only 6 minutes of playing together. So that's not a lot. But then when you break them up individually, they were fantastic. Jonathan Berggren was your best player out there, percentage wise. And again, playing time is a huge factor in that. Is Berggren only got 13 minutes of playing time at 5-on-5. Well, you got guys like Phil Peronic on the defensive side of things who had like 17 minutes. So more playing time, you're going to see more action, and those percentages will shift. But he was your best player at Corsi. He was your best player at shots for percentage. 7 shots for 3 shots against. And no other player on the team had 7 shots for when he was on the ice, when they were on the ice, than Jonathan Berggren. It's Jonathan Berggren, by the way. I keep wanting to call him Jonathan Berggren, but it's Jonathan Berggren. And if you ask Ken Daniels, it's Berggren.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on that. But expected goals for percentage was 64%. And then following him was Veleno and Czarnik. So they were the best line together. And then individually, they were the best players on the ice. Again, time on the ice is a big factor into that. But I've really liked what I've seen out of that fourth line in these losses. They just continue to have high motivation and easy chemistry.
Yeah, and again, it's something we talked about with the depth and how vital that is. This is a very nice development. That's something that this team desperately needs. So
well, and speaking of depth, the depth could get very much better very soon, as Tyler Bertuzzi is, I won't say expected, but possibly playing on Tuesday against Anaheim. Yeah. And my question is this, Scotty, regarding Tyler Bertuzzi coming back. How much better does Detroit get with Tyler Bertuzzi in the lineup? How many of the issues that the Red Wings have will Tyler Bertuzzi fix?
Well, I mean, as far as right away, I think the issue that we talk about with consistent zone pressure, or consistent pressure in the opponent's zone, I think that he definitely greatly helps in that area, just because of his style of play and being, wreaking havoc in front of the net, or, playing bully ball or whatever. He's gonna certainly help the offense. But obviously, like you said, I think the biggest thing is just it's going to improve the depth. And this is a team that, again, on opening night, we were like, okay, this is the deepest Wings team we've had in a few years. This is really nice and really reassuring. And then
immediately
players got hurt that immediately that depth went away, and we were just as shallow as we were. Now, that's the point of depth. So great. But as these players start to slowly come back into the lineup, you're going to see a deeper and deeper team. Soderblom didn't play against LA. Hopefully that's a temporary thing. He took a puck off the knee. Hopefully that is resolved quickly. So you're going to see this team just get deeper, which can only help, obviously.
Yeah, I think that 5-on-5 play is where Bertuzzi is going to massively help. And you mentioned it too, is generating that offensive zone pressure, because if there's anyone on this team who can make dump and chase hockey successful, it's Tyler Bertuzzi. And I'm not advocating for dump and chase. I'd rather have a clean zone entry. But there are times where dump and chase is the only way to get that puck into the zone. And Tyler Bertuzzi wins battles along the boards.
Yes.
That's something this team struggles to do. He wins those battles along the boards, and he wins those net front battles. He is an absolute menace, and he's got decent hands on him too. So combining those two factors with his high motor, this guy can be a game changer in the top 6 and really generate more goals. You'll go from, I'm not trying to say he's like Connor McDavid, but the impact he will have on that top 6 can't be overstated. He will make the top line better. You're not going to have Larkin, Raymond, and then cycle of Pius Suter or Dominic Kubalik or whoever's playing that top line anymore. You'll have Bertuzzi, Larkin, and Raymond back together, which
A little more consistency, yeah.
Which we know from last year when that team was brutal, is a bona fide top line for this team that generates a lot of offense. So then you have that, your second line of Kopp, assuming he ever turns it on. He's been underwhelming. I feel like that should be a topic for one of these episodes, is how underwhelming Kopp's been so far. But Kopp, Perron, and Kubalik, those are two bona fide wingers, and they have good chemistry together. And we've seen that on the power play. That's a good top six now. You got your good top six back. Moving Pius Suter back down to the bottom six adds that depth back. I mean, not only is it an immediate impact on the top six, pushing those guys back down to where they're more comfortable is going to make the bottom six better. So no, I don't think that Tyler Bertuzzi is going to solve every issue that the Red Wings have. But I think that he will go a long way to helping the team get better. And that seems like such a no-duh statement. But he's going to score goals. He's going to make plays happen. He's just, he's a, I don't want to call him a playmaker because he is, but like that's not the word I'm trying to use. He is like he's like a spark plug.
He's not a playmaker in the sense of being like this uber elite facilitator, but he is a playmaker in the sense that plays happen when he is on the ice.
Yeah, because of him, because he's a spark plug. He starts things, and it's like getting him back is so crucial to this team's success.
Absolutely.
The only other shout out I have is the power play scored 2 goals. You got back on the horse. Let's go.
Yeah. Always good. And again, something that I would like to see more on a consistent basis instead of like, hey, we're not going to score for a week and then we're going to drop 2 or 3 in a night and our percentage isn't going to be terrible. Like I'd like a little more consistency, but yeah, obviously always a plus.
Yeah. I mean, end of the day, guys, the game was a step in the right direction. There are still issues to be had, but they tightened up on those issues. But again, no moral victories. You know, you gotta start winning hockey games. Bright side though, silver lining is there's only 2 points separating you and the second in the division. This division is still a really tight race with the exception of the Bruins being, I don't know, somehow a juggernaut this season.
Insane.
I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised at the same time. If Bergeron had retired, Krejci wouldn't have come back. That team would have been a lot worse off. But
correct.
Bergeron is ageless. Krejci apparently is ageless. And we already knew that McAvoy, who just came back, Marchand is great. And we know what David Pasternak is. So, I mean, those Bruins. But the rest of the division is still very close.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that'll do it. We'll be back on Tuesday. New episode. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Andrew Kopp. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see what unfolds.
Maybe.
Same time, same place. Is your team every day.
Every day.
I was expecting you to go bet online there, so I paused for you to say it.
Bet online.
There it is.